Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here, and in this video we're going to be talking about something very interesting. We're going to be talking about simultaneous incarnation. So when we're looking at the factor as it relates to reincarnation, let me spell that properly. This is one of the most common terms as it relates to reincarnation. And of course, we may go into certain forms of Eastern philosophies, Eastern dogmas that may relate to that if you don't live a wholehearted life, well, maybe you'll incarnate again physically as a cow or a sheep or something of that particular nature to learn the lessons of love or the lessons of a wholehearted life, etc. Well, that's not really how it works, right? So basically, when we're looking into reincarnation, there really is no such thing. There's no such thing as a reincarnation, right? When you go into incarnation, you are going into different dimensional Earths every single lifetime that you decide to come back onto this planet in a physical life, right? So I'll just put E here, E1, E2, E3. Now these Earths exist in different dimensional fabrics. Okay? So every time that we are deciding, and again that's an important factor which I'm going to get into here in a minute as well too. Every time that we are deciding to incarnate, then we go into, let's say one lifetime is in this first version of Earth. Another lifetime is in this second version of Earth. A third lifetime would be in another different dimensional Earth. Now, the important thing to understand is that you're never incarnating on the exact same themed Earth. Okay? There will always be an Earth of a different dimension. Now, if we were to basically look at E1 as our 100% familiar lifetime that we are living right now, and we're looking at other lifetimes. Maybe there's a lifetime where I feel like I was a barbarian. Maybe it was a barbarian in Mongolia. So that was happening on a different Earth. And it's about 99.8% familiar with a lot of the similar themes that I'm experiencing on this Earth. So this Earth right now, with my 100% familiarity of continuity about the understanding of collective history, this is the Earth that I, of course, am the most familiar with, that I'm presently on. But when I'm looking at this other lifetime, there's a 99.8% similarity, but a 0.2% difference as it relates to that Earth and as it relates to its own historical information or its historical collective. Now, I see another lifetime. Maybe I'm a healer in Egypt. And this one is 98.4% similar to these other two corresponding Earths. So again, we have a little bit of different collective history as it relates to that third Earth. But what actually weaves these two other Earths together with my own is the familiarity, the relationship, the rapport, right? Which again we can look at as correspondence. So correspondence is responsible. Let's see if I can spell it right. Correspondence. I apologize if I'm not spelling it right. But so correspondence is what is responsible here. We have a correspondence. This is why some of us are able to tune into our galactic lifetimes, right? They're in different dimensions. And they may have, in that sense, up to, let's say, 52% similarity in their own collective relating to our own sense of continuity in this universe. But nonetheless, there's a magnetic pulling. Here's this simultaneous lifetime. Here's your physical human lifetime. And they're pulling at each other. They're bringing each other together. Okay? So this is looking at simultaneous incarnation. Here on this Earth, me as Brad, right? and in another lifetime here on this other earth, and another lifetime here on this earth. But there's a divergence relating to the idea about the collective historical data. But nonetheless, there's correspondence because we are building rapport, right? So again, relating to what corresponds. From within shall be without. And so there is similarities with the rapport of me being on these different worlds that I'm now pulling in to my own awareness, and now I'm becoming aware of these different lifetimes. Now, again, looking at the year 2019, relating to my incarnation here, and then looking at this one, let's say again, it's in 1214 AD, in this other dimensional Earth, and in this one, let's say it's 100 AD, in this different dimensional Earth. Okay, so again, there are some light differences pertaining to these different Earths, but the lifetimes that I'm living here create some type of rapport. They correspond to what I'm going through right now as it serves with memory. So this is what we would understand as other lifetimes. Well, Brad, do we have another lifetime here on this exact themed Earth, on E1? Do I have another... Sorry, that's supposed to be a 1. Do I have another lifetime in the past relating to the E1 Earth? No, you don't, right? This is your first incarnation as it relates to being on this planet, okay? This particular themed Earth that has this type of collective consciousness, okay? So you have other lifetimes that are branching out into different dimensional Earths existing in other universes. And so you're tapping into these different incarnations. So, looking at it in that particular model, where if I was looking at a priest here, for example, one of those Earths where I was a priest, then that's what I'm looking at. That's relating to my soul. My soul is connected to that particular Earth, relating to that particular form of incarnation. But of course, what's happening right now is that many of these Earths are conjuncting themselves. They are merging. We're merging timelines. And so, you can look at all of these different dimensional Earths that are aligning back to a prime Earth. And that's primarily what's happening here, okay? So, with this other particular lifetime here, in 100 AD, where I was a priest, does that lifetime happen? Yes, it certainly could happen here. But I may not have been the soul relating to that individual. It may have been another soul entirely, for example, right? So, basically, whenever we're incarnating on a different dimensional Earth, it really is our first time there, because we're going through a different type of correspondence. We're going through a different divergence ratio with the collective consciousness. This is why some people may remember certain periods of history that are different, right? We understand that quite commonly with the Mandela effect, right? So where we're looking into Nelson Mandela, to where people believe he died in the 1980s, and then he died not too long ago. So we basically have people that are converging from other Earths into this primed Earth that is merging together. So this is where things might get a little bit complicated, because as we're merging together in these other Earths, those particular lifetimes may actually start to bond together with this Earth, where you may actually remember that on this merging Earth coming together with this Earth, that past lifetime that you remember may actually now be merging together with that particular Earth because of the unique situation that we're going through right now. So Brad, what are you saying? So E2 and E3, these timelines that we're going through, are merging together into a prime Earth. So the prime Earth represents a converged Earth, an Earth that is now starting to assimilate timelines together into it. And now, because those Earths are now converging together with this Earth, our continuity is now able to look back into our own state of history, and everything that we have been on that particular Earth can be now a greater possibility of looking at ourselves as a soul pertaining to that past incarnation that happened on that other Earth. Now again, really it's not a past incarnation, it's not a future incarnation, it's a simultaneous incarnation. So again, this is where it may get a little bit confusing. Right? It's like as if I was to draw an Earth within an Earth, within an Earth, within an Earth. All of this is converging. So as we have converging timelines, we're mixing the entire continuity of the Earth together. And now we're actually seeing new timelines come to place. So that timeline in E2 here, where I was a Mongolian barbarian, is actually starting to fuse together into E1, where now I can actually recall that as these are two fused Earths coming together, I can actually be that soul of that particular incarnation that I'm remembering. That's actually merging into this timeline. So there's collapsing timelines. But if we basically look at these Earths as three separate Earths, no, our soul simply exists within those particular dimensional Earths as those beings only. Because every time we incarnate, again, when we choose to incarnate, we come back to a different dimensional Earth. It's never the same Earth. It's like time traveling. It's like what I've talked about in the past relating to time traveling. That if you're basically on an alpha dimensional line, and what Adronis has also talked about as well too, and then you go into another line that we could call the beta line, there's a divergence factor. So things may be 99.7% similar, but there's still that little bit of difference. And once you go off that particular alpha timeline, you can't really get back on it. It starts now going into these other branches, and they all represent different divergence numbers. Okay? It's the exact same thing when we incarnate. When we incarnate, we're going into different dimensional lines. So again, if our 100% alpha timeline here, and we shift, then we start going into a changing of percentages relating to the Earths that we occupy. Now again, 99.8% isn't that much. There's only little tiny bits of changes here and there that again, we may not recall. We may say, okay, well, I remember Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s. I remember when it was called the Bernstein Bears, not the Berenstain Bears, or whatever it is, right? We look at these minute differences because what's happening now is we are segueing into a primed Earth. These timelines are converging. Certain things are being canceled out because of the merging, but nonetheless, we are operating in a different Earth that we may be not so familiar with. And this is going to continue to happen, but this happens through incarnation. Okay, so you're always popping in to different dimensional Earths, whether they in that sense may be greater in similarity or lesser in similarity, doesn't really matter. It fits a tone, it fits a theme that you're exploring. So that is the nature of simultaneous incarnation. So there's been a lot of confusion with this. And as Adronis has talked about in times past, as I've talked about in times past, it's always referred to as simultaneous incarnation. There is no such thing as a reincarnation. Okay? You're not really reincarnating because you're not coming on the same Earth, only in regards to what's happening right now, pertaining to many Earths that are forging themselves into one. This is where it's a very, very unique situation, where we're actually seeing that we can actually converge with many other lifetimes that go down the timelines that we're now familiar with because we've entered a prime Earth, an Earth within an Earth within an Earth, where these Earths are fusing. And so now we're able to say, oh yeah, I feel it because it's almost like a 99.9% or maybe even close to a 100% familiarity of me being a Mongol barbarian or a Egyptian healer or anything of that nature, because these timelines are fusing. These planets are fusing into each other. It's a collection point, right, or a convergence point. So, as I talked about earlier, if we choose to physically incarnate, well, Brad, what does that mean? We're choosing to physically incarnate again? Yes. Which means, if we look at Earth here, Many of us feel, because even I was being under this belief as well too for a time, that again, if we are on Earth, we don't have we have unfinished business, we need to come back again. Okay, so we, again, quote unquote, reincarnate. No, you don't have to do that again. Okay, here's basically how it works. After you transition from your body, okay, we look at the dimensional planes here, for example. Now you exist in what you could refer to as fourth density or fifth dimension. Let's call it 5D. When your body expires. And now you come into the spirit world relating to a 5D or fourth density plane that you're working with. You can now decide to elevate yourself further up the spiritual path and go further up the spiritual dimensions, as I've talked about before, right? Coming into the realized path and then moving up into the creator's path and moving further and further up and higher up the dimensional plateaus if you want to, okay? Or you can look back down at Earth and say, you know what, I'm kind of getting an idea about what Earth is going through right now. I'm going to pop back onto the Earth plane again. Okay. Sure, go for it. Nobody's going to stop you. And you decide to incarnate again back onto a physical Earth, or again a specific dimensional Earth that relates to your energetic, that relates to your soul vibration, you could say. So you pop back onto the Earth again, and you have another lifetime, but again, it's not this exact same Earth. It's another type of Earth that has a different familiarity percentage. So maybe it's 95% familiarity, whatever it may be. You're just aligning to that particular Earth that gives you the best lessons, experiences, understandings of love that it wants to, or say that you want to, that you basically attract that particular collective that suits you. So again, many of us here on this planet have brought forward this particular type of converged Earth because this suits us best relating to what we're learning here in the physical plane, okay? So, Brad, do I have to come back to Earth ever again? No, not at all. If you never want to see Earth again, you can go as far away from it as you want to. But guess what a lot of the spirits in spirit world are talking about? They're talking about Earth because that's where a lot of the action is. That's why we've had such a population explosion the way we've had. Because so many souls are interested in Earth at this time, because we're on the cusp of moving into a great shift, right? As I've talked about with 2037. Again, looking into that time of the 3 days of darkness, and of course, the fourth density harvest, fifth dimensional harvest. So that's a very, very popular thing. Souls want to come in here and they want to experience that for themselves and say, hey, this is great. This is going to be exciting. Sure, it's physical. Sure, it's limiting. But there's nothing wrong with existing in a limited sphere because this gives you so much lessons about yourself, right? I hear from other particular teachers that, no, a lot of spirits don't want to come back to Earth, or not a lot of souls want to come back to the Earth. BS. There are a lot of souls that want to come back to the Earth. That's exactly why we have the population explosion like we did. If Earth was not a popular place, right, there would be hardly any souls left on this planet. Okay? We would have maybe a population of 1,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people. No, that's not the case. It's not the idea of saying that, you know, souls don't really want to be here on Earth anymore. They just want to go higher up in the dimensions, because there are beautiful dimensions that exist in the spirit world. I've certainly been to a few of them myself, and they are gorgeous. They're wonderful. And you fall in love with these dimensions. They're just more beautiful than we can possibly imagine. But from a soul that really wants to get to know themselves a lot more, that wants to learn the lessons of love, that wants to come to a grand university like Earth, they come here. Okay? It's not a one-hit deal, right? It's not about the idea of one soul coming here, having one incarnation. Okay, never coming there again. All right, that's your choice. But the majority of souls here on the planet have had experiences being on other Earths as well too. Not this exact same themed Earth, but other dimensional Earths as well too. So when we're looking at quote-unquote past lives, we're looking at E2, E3, E4, E5. We're looking at familiar Earths that, again, are telling us these incarnations that we have lived on those Earths. So other than the prime Earth with what's happening right now, when you're looking at other incarnations on these different Earths, yes, you basically have a one-hit deal with those particular Earths, because that's the themed Earth that you're exploring, okay? Now, there may be other teachers in that sense that say, well, you know, there really is no idea of reincarnation or even incarnating a second time on a planet, or even, you know, dimensional Earths in that way, because all you're really doing is, if here's a human, you're just a soul, and you're attaching to them. You're attaching to their liver, you're attaching to their kidneys, you're attaching to their heart, and you're overcloaking their lifetime, and you're getting memories from that particular lifetime. Granted, that can happen. You're right. There can be certain things like that that can take place. The idea of spirits that are disembodied, they come here on the planet, they find somebody who is a vibrational match to them, and they may occupy that person's internal organs, because they may want to feel what it's like to get drunk again, feel what it's like to have cigarettes, feel what it's like to have alcohol, figure what it's like to have drugs, feel what it's like to have a really big meal, right? Having sex again, feeling that energy as well too, connecting themselves to the genitals, right, and all that. Yes, that can certainly happen. There's no doubt that that happens. That's actually quite notorious, right? I've removed quite a few spirits from people that have had those kind of mentalities. Some, again, just attach to a human being because they're afraid. They just don't know where to go, and they attach themselves to an organ, and they feel like that's a spot. That's like a nice little hub for them, okay? That does happen. So is that the only explanation to what's happening here? No. You do have other lifetimes on other Earths, okay? It may not be the exact same Earth that you're on right now, like I've talked about, but you have certainly had incarnations on other Earths. And those are the incarnations that many of us are seeing, right? Different Earths. So, as I would summarize this and call it simulcarnation or simul-incarnation, okay? That's what I refer to it as. I don't refer to it as reincarnation, because you're not reincarnating on the exact same 100% Earth of familiarity over and over and over and over again. That's extremely rare, right? Like I said, when you're in a primed Earth, an Earth that again has a convergence effect with the many Earths that are happening, yes, that can take place. And again, that's why we're remembering a lot of these other Earths that are coming together within us. Now, if that prime Earth situation was not happening, would we recall other lifetimes on other Earths? Absolutely. Because again, what requires it is like attracts like, right? Vibrational coherency, relationship, rapport, correspondence. So this is again the breakdown as it relates to simulcarnation or simul-incarnation. Okay, there is no such thing as reincarnation. It's not about feeling that you're cursed and you have to all of a sudden manifest and incarnate yourself as a cow or incarnate yourself as a lizard or anything like that. Now, if you want to, you can certainly be an animal again. You can certainly be a part of nature again, whatever you want to do. You're certainly allowed to do that. You can do whatever you want, right? So when you're up to this particular plane, this represents your love coherency of where you're currently at, fourth density, fifth dimension, okay? And of course, there's fifth density, there's sixth density, etc. It keeps going up the chain. But we're just using this as an example, right? That person's love vibration coherency is at this particular level where they feel themselves in fourth density, where they're in fifth density or fifth dimension. So that's kind of summarizing this up as best I can. I'm pretty sure if there's any questions about this, I can always do a follow-up video relating to this. But again, I have heard from a particular teacher that again really does not believe in the idea of reincarnation, and I don't either. So, you know, I'm not into the subscription of reincarnation. It's a distorted idea, right? But again, there is simultaneous incarnation. There is simul incarnation. That's how it works. Every time you incarnate on the earth, you're going to a different themed earth. So you're going to Earth version 1, Earth version 2, Earth version 3, just to utilize that in a form of term. There's always going to be some difference, either major or minor, pertaining to these Earths. But most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, you're looking at Earths that only have a very small divergence ratio of difference, right? If you're basically looking at something where there's a 50% divergence change, you're probably not even going to really coexist with these particular types of Earths, because these Earths have a similar resonance to themselves. There's slight differences, but they're not off the top 50%. Like say the Nazis rule the world and there's chaos and there's a dystopia everywhere. No, we're not experiencing a lifetime like that. That could be 50% different relating to our course of history. So that is not even parallel to what we're actually merging together pertaining to a prime Earth, right? So a primed Earth takes very similar Earths all together that again have a very somewhat similar range pertaining to divergence and merging them, right? Collapsing timelines. And now you're again having a greater memory relating to all these different lifetimes that you're going through, okay? This information is not coming from me, it is coming from Spirit, okay? So I want you guys to remember that. When I roll the camera, Spirit is speaking through me about all of these concepts, okay? It's not my opinion, it is spiritual perspective. So we just want to be mindful in that sense about having any kind of outrageous, so totally different that nobody can really relate to it type situation when it comes to incarnation. It's not really that complicated, right? We're always looking at different dimensional Earths. We're always looking at different incarnations. As it relates to this Earth right now, because there are forgings of timelines coming together, you may recall other incarnations that appear that are happening upon this planet, but in actuality was from other Earths that are now fusing into this plane right now. Okay? So I hope that clears the air. But again, if you guys do have questions, let me know, and I can always do another future video relating to simultaneous incarnation. All right? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care.